For years, the world has been living in a dream built on cheap money and infinite credit. Every crash leaves scars, yet every recovery convinces us that this time, it's different. It never is. Interest rates stayed near zero for over a decade. Governments printed more money in 3 years than in the previous 50. Debt became a drug. Easy, addictive, and invisible. But now, the effects are wearing off. Inflation isn't just a number. It's the signal that faith is fading. The cost of living isn't rising. The value of money is falling. And the very system that promised prosperity is now collapsing under its own weight. In 1929, it was speculation. In 2008, it was housing. In 2026, it's everything. The global economy isn't overheating. It's unraveling. Once, money was backed by gold. Now it's backed by nothing but confidence. And confidence is the most fragile currency of all. When the Federal Reserve prints $1 trillion, it doesn't create wealth, it just redistributes it. The rich get richer, assets inflate, and the middle class slowly disappears beneath the weight of invisible inflation. Since 2020, the US has printed over $13 trillion in new money. That's more than the total currency created in the first 200 years of the nation's history. But here's the twist. The economy didn't grow proportionally. Wages stagnated, prices soared, and savings collapsed. We are not producing more, we are just pricing higher. A dollar doesn't buy what it once did, because it was never meant to. When debt becomes money, money loses meaning. There's one signal economists fear more than any other: the inverted yield curve. Every single major recession in modern history has followed it. And today, that curve is more inverted than it was before the Great Depression. It means short-term debt is riskier than long-term debt. It means investors have lost faith in the future. And it means the storm is near. Stock markets are at record highs. But under the surface, liquidity is vanishing. Corporate debt has hit $97 trillion globally. Consumer savings? The lowest in half a century. This is the same script, the same buildup, just written in a new century. The characters change. The system doesn't. The illusion of growth always ends the same way, with reality catching up. Debt once fueled progress. Now, it fuels survival. Governments borrow to stay in power. Corporations borrow to buy back their own stock. Families borrow to keep living the life they can no longer afford. But here's the danger. Debt only works when the future is bigger than the present. When growth stalls, the system breaks. And for the first time in 75 years, global growth is shrinking under the weight of its own promises. The US national debt has crossed $40 trillion. Interest payments alone now exceed the entire defense budget. Every dollar borrowed steals value from tomorrow, and tomorrow is running out. The more we print, the less it's worth. The more we borrow, the less we own. This isn't capitalism anymore. It's creditism, and it always ends the same way. Central banks were once the firefighters of the economy. Now they are the arsonists holding the hose. For years, they injected liquidity to save markets. Now they can't stop without everything collapsing. Raise rates, and the debt bubble bursts. Cut rates, and inflation roars back. It's a trap with no exit. In 2008, the Fed's balance sheet was under $1 trillion. Today, it's over $8.5 trillion. Japan, Europe, China all have followed the same path. They promised control, but what they created is dependency. Markets no longer move on fundamentals, only on the hope of more money printing. And hope, like credit, eventually runs out. Every economic cycle follows a pattern: euphoria, excess, Denial, collapse, reform, repeat. We are deep in the denial phase. Investors still believe the market will bounce back. They always do, until it doesn't. Housing prices are cracking. Tech valuations are unsustainable. The bond market, once the world's safest investment, is now losing trillions. In 1929, it was a crash of stocks. In 2008, it was a crash of housing. But the next one will be a crash of trust. And trust, once broken, doesn't recover in a quarter. It takes a generation. For over a decade, we lived in an era of easy money. Cheap loans, zero rates, unlimited liquidity. But that era is over. Now every dollar costs more. Every decision carries weight. And every institution that depended on free money, from banks to startups, is being tested. The age of infinite growth has ended, and the reckoning has begun. As defaults rise and currencies weaken, nations are quietly preparing for a new order, one where digital money replaces cash and surveillance replaces trust. A financial reset disguised as innovation. The next era won't be freer. It'll be tighter, more controlled, and less forgiving. History doesn't repeat. It evolves. And every evolution begins with destruction. The system we built is too leveraged to sustain itself, too interconnected to fail quietly. The question isn't if it will break, it's how loudly it will. When currencies collapse, nations rewrite rules. When economies freeze, innovation reawakens. And from the ashes of excess, something new always rises. But this time, what rises might not be freedom. It might be control. Central bank digital currencies. Programmable money. A financial system that knows what you spend, when, and why. They will call it stability. But in truth, it's surveillance disguised as safety. Markets don't crash when people expect them to. They crash when people stop paying attention. Right now, optimism is everywhere. Investors celebrate small rallies. Governments claim victory over inflation. And media headlines say, the worst is over. But beneath the noise, the cracks are widening. Commercial real estate is imploding. Corporate bankruptcies are at record highs. And consumer debt delinquencies are quietly soaring. The whisper is already there. Faint, but rising. The system is creaking. The cycle is nearing its end. And when it does, it won't just reset the economy. It'll redefine what money means. Every system has a breaking point. A moment when belief can no longer hold back reality. For global markets, that moment is approaching. It starts small. A major bank quietly freezes withdrawals. A bond auction fails. A country defaults. Then panic spreads faster than any virus. Liquidity vanishes overnight. Credit markets seize. The financial world, once addicted to leverage, begins to suffocate without it. Stocks plummet, currencies collapse, and investors realize what few dared to admit. The prosperity of the last decade was built not on growth, but on debt pretending to be growth. In the noise of crisis, governments will announce emergency measures. Rate cuts, bailouts, new digital currencies. But these are not solutions. They are symptoms of surrender. The world's most powerful economies are about to learn that money cannot be printed forever. And confidence, once lost, cannot be restored by decree. The collapse won't come all at once. It'll come in waves. The first will hit the markets, stocks, bonds, real estate. The second will strike the people, jobs, savings, pensions. And the final wave will hit trust itself. Banks will restrict withdrawals to prevent panic. Governments will promise stability while quietly rewriting financial laws. And in that confusion, the era of private money will end. They'll unveil a solution, a central bank digital currency, programmable and traceable. They'll say it's safer, more efficient, impossible to counterfeit. But what they won't say is that it's also impossible to escape. Every transaction, every dollar, every choice, visible, controlled, and approved. Freedom, once measured in cash, will now be measured in compliance. The great unraveling isn't just financial. It's philosophical. It's about who controls the value of your labor, you or the system. And in that struggle, the true cost of safety will finally be revealed. From the ruins of collapse, a new order always rises. But it never looks like what came before. When gold collapsed, paper money replaced it. When banks failed, central banks emerged. Now, as fiat currencies lose credibility, digital empires will take their place. Tech giants will merge with financial institutions. Money will no longer be printed, it will be coded. And wealth will no longer flow through markets, but through algorithms. In this new order, power won't belong to nations. It will belong to those who control data, networks, and trust. China's digital yuan will lead one side, America's digital dollar the other. And caught in between, billions of people who no longer hold money, but access. Access that can be limited, paused, or erased with a single command. This is not the future we were promised, but it's the one we've built. One transaction at a time. Every collapse leaves behind two kinds of people: those who lose everything and those who learn. The system will reset. Currencies will change. But value, real value, will endure. Land, resources, innovation, knowledge. These will outlive the illusion of printed wealth. The investors who survive won't be the loudest or the richest. They'll be the ones who understood the game was never about money. It was about time, trust, and truth. The reckoning is not the end of prosperity, it's the end of delusion. And as history turns another page, the same lesson echoes once more. You cannot borrow your way to wealth. You cannot print your way to freedom. And you cannot save a system that refuses to save itself. The great debt illusion is ending. The world that follows will finally have to remember what money is supposed to mean.